I recently just read your report from March, your historic report, and I would encourage anyone who's interested in this topic to read the report because when I was asked by a reporter about it, they said, well, it doesn't show any evidence of secret programs that have aliens. That's not how I read the report. What I read the report is the US government took sightings extremely seriously over the last 75 years, put some of the greatest minds ever to analyze these cases because they assess them as some deeply unknown phenomena that may or may not cause threats, that may or may not be related to adversaries, but are certainly something that the US government needed to know about.
These were the words of U.S. Senator Kirsten Gillibrand from New York. After last week's UAP-UFO hearing, which received significant media attention, another one followed this week. This time, the new AARO director, Jon Kosloski, testified before the U.S. Senate. AARO stands for All-domain Anomaly Resolution Office and was established in 2022. It is an office within the United States Office of the Secretary of Defense that investigates unidentified flying objects, UFOs, and other phenomena in the air, sea, land, or space.
Nick, what is your understanding of the activities of this All-domain Anomaly Resolution Office? And also, what do you make of the fact that there was this closed-door session prior to the hearing?
Well, I think the closed-door session is very interesting because it shows that whatever people say in public, part of this subject is still highly classified. And of course, we can speculate what that might mean. Skeptics say it probably just means that they're talking about secret prototype aircraft and drones. Believers say it might have something to do with extraterrestrials.
Despite its young history, AARO has already faced negative headlines. Its first director, Sean Kirkpatrick, who had ties to the CIA, resigned in December 2023. One likely reason was disagreements with UFO whistleblower David Grusch, as the two engaged in a public exchange of accusations. To this day, it remains unclear to outsiders whether Kirkpatrick was correct in claiming has refused to speak with AARO. Since August 2024, AARO has been led by Jon Kosloski, who previously spent 2 decades at the National Security Agency, NSA, where he worked in optics, computing, and cryptomathematics. AARO has received over 1,600 UAP reports and has successfully resolved hundreds of cases involving everyday objects such as balloons, birds, drones, satellites, and airplanes. However, over 900 reports lack sufficient data for scientific analysis and remain in their active archive. Initial statement.
AARO has not discovered any verifiable evidence of extraterrestrial beings, activity, or technology.
Jon Kosloski's initial statement was predictable. Anything else would have been a sensation. Resolved cases from the Senate hearing.
Okay, a case that we thought would be a transmedium case as it was reported is well known on the outside, known as the Puerto Rico case. It was data collected in 2013 when a Customs and Border Patrol aircraft observed an object flying near an airport in Puerto Rico. The green line in this diagram is the track that the airplane was taking, and those many crossed lines are the directions that the camera was facing at the time that the airplane was flying around the airport, and we'll watch the video in just a moment. The orange arrow in the center is where we assess that the UAP was actually flying, and transmedium means that it goes from one domain into another. In this case, it looks like it goes from the air into the water and then back into the air. We assess that it was actually flying over the airport the entire time. And this video was taken with infrared, and what appears to be the transmedium part where it goes into the water is actually where the temperature of the water is equal to the temperature of the object, and the camera can no longer distinguish between the two. It's not that the object actually goes into the water. And so we assess that the object, likely a pair of balloons or sky lanterns, was floating at about 7 knots over the airport and descending to about 200 meters. The GoFast was captured the public attention and congressional attention when it was made public in 2017. looks like an object flying very fast over the water, very close to the water. Through a very careful geospatial intelligence analysis using trigonometry, we assess with high confidence that the object is not actually close to the water, but is rather closer to 13,000 feet. Diagram here shows as the platform is flying and capturing the object, if it is closer to the platform at a higher altitude, a trick of the eye called parallax makes it look like the object is moving much faster. And so we've written a detailed paper on parallax, released that on our website so that the public can literally check our math on this analysis.
The explanation of the Puerto Rico case was convincing and plausible. However, the resolution of the GoFast video remains contentious. Journalist Stephen Greenstreet pointed out on X, formerly Twitter, that the reported date contradicts earlier statements. Additionally, it is difficult to accept that a case involving data from a Raytheon AN/ASQ-228, Advanced Targeting Forward-Looking Infrared ATFL-IR system, could simply be explained as parallax. The ATFL-IR is specifically designed to identify targets at great distances. It integrates various sensors to provide precise data and includes a laser target illuminator and rangefinder. Given this, the U.S. Navy should know exactly how far away the object was and how fast it was moving. Unsolved cases from the Senate hearing.
The first one was brought to us by a law enforcement officer out west, where he observed a large orange orb floating several hundred feet above the ground a couple miles away. He went to investigate what was going on with that orb. And as he was pulling up to the location where he thought would be below the orb, about 40 to 60 meters away from some object the area was well lit, he saw a blacker than black object. He said it was about the size of a Prius, 4 to 6 feet wide. And as he got 40 to 60 meters away from the object, it tilted up about 45 degrees, and then it shot up vertically. He says 10 to 100 times faster than any drone he's ever seen before. And it did that without making a sound, as far as he could tell from inside of his vehicle. And just as it left his field of view through his windshield, then it emitted very bright red and blue lights that illuminated the inside of his vehicle as brightly as if someone had set off fireworks just outside his vehicle, or street flares. So that's anomalous because of the size of the vehicle with the great acceleration. And when he came back to investigate that area, he found no disturbance of the ground beneath it. So that's one interesting one. Another one comes to us from Southeast US. There was a US facility where 2 cars of government contractors were leaving the facility around 9 o'clock in the morning. They looked up in the sky and saw a large metallic cylinder about the size of a commercial airplane, and it was stationary. They observed that there was a very bright white light behind or around the object. They saw it stationary for 15 to 20 seconds, and then it disappeared. Obviously, an object that large, stationary, unless it's a blimp, is unusual, but then disappearing, we can't explain how that would happen.
The unsolved cases presented during the hearing were particularly intriguing. One standout was the blacker-than-black object, a characteristic that has often been associated with UAPs, UFOs. Interestingly, BMW became the first manufacturer to produce a Vantablack car, painted with a light-absorbing coating in the blackest black. Cooperation with academic institutions.
And Dr. Kosloski, you mentioned that you do work with the intelligence community. You're working with the FAA. Has AARO involved academia? Have you gone to universities? Do you have outside organizations that you are working with? And if so, can you walk us through some of that collaboration?
Sure. Right now, most of our collaborations that are veering towards academia are with university-affiliated research centers associated with universities or with FFRDCs. Our partnership with universities, I would say, is lacking right now. We have some one-off associations with university professors. However, that's our fault, and it's largely because of the need to declassify data. We need to give the professors something to work on before we can really engage them. So we're working significantly on a declassification effort. We've hired a number of declassification experts, and we're going to be trying to get cases like the ones that I just discussed here declassified so that we can engage with the universities on a regular basis and provide them the data. Talking to a scientist without data is going to be rather disappointing. So hopefully in 2025, we'll be increasing those efforts.
It is encouraging that AARO intends to collaborate more with academic institutions. Jon Kosloski's clear acknowledgement that the lack of cooperation has been due to AARO itself is an important step forward. Transparency versus secrecy at the Pentagon.
How do you balance the need for the transparency that our public is demanding with the potential risks of revealing classified defense information?
Yeah, that's always a concern that's on the front of our minds. We want to make sure that we're deconflicting both on potential U.S. programs and what the IC might be tracking for adversarial programs as we're aggregating that information and preparing to share it. However, oftentimes we can remove the discussion of the unidentified and anomalous activity from the sensitive information that our partners are concerned with. And that's usually going to be the platforms that the information was collected with, if it is truly anomalous. And so we have our partners working alongside in the declassification of that data.
AARO faces a fundamental conflict of interest. On one hand, the Pentagon is under significant public pressure following testimony from several UFO whistleblowers, with Americans demanding greater transparency. On the other hand, the Pentagon continues to face scrutiny for failing its financial audits for the 7th consecutive time. With billions of dollars unaccounted for, concerns about black projects hidden from Congress or even the White House remain valid. However, AARO's ability to provide transparency is limited by the Pentagon's cooperation. If the Pentagon decides that certain information must remain classified, AARO will not be able to release it. Conclusion. As long as this trade-off exists, we do not expect any groundbreaking discoveries from AARO. While progress is being made, the constraints imposed by secrecy and limited cooperation continue to hinder full transparency.